in this video, I want to show you my approach to making the trail textures in Substance Designer. So we're going to create this trail texture. Let me isolate that for you. As you can see here, I kind of got two trails. The one is just a very thin line trail with a lot of noise to it. And the other one is just exactly the same texture, but it's a bit more wider. Okay, so let me get one of those. Okay, so let's dive into Substance and let's create that texture for the trail. I'm gonna start by pressing Tab button and bringing Parallel Noise. Next, I'm gonna bring the cross section. So this node is sometimes not available in Substance. However, in most of the version it should be there. So if you can't see this node, try to update your software, and I hope it will be there. I think I found like one version that it wasn't there, but since I updated, it kind of appeared in my inventory. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to Parallel Noise and tweak the scale a little bit. I want like a nice curve for the cross section. The cross section, I'm gonna change the drawing style to be gradient mirrored, and I just want to have a solid line, so I'm gonna go for histogram scan. I'm gonna change the position and the contrast of it to maximum, and now I can control the thickness of this line. I'm gonna blur it just a little bit using Blur HQ Grayscale with the default settings, and I'm gonna bring multi-directional warp scale. I'm gonna get another Parallel Noise for this warp. Double click to see actually what's happening, and for the Parallel Noise, I'm just gonna scale it down a bit. I'm gonna ramp up the intent, maybe something like 50. So we're getting like a really nice distortion. I'm gonna try maybe find a different directions, or try different directions just to see what kind of results we might get. So I think I like two directions the most. Maybe intensity is a little bit too much, so let's keep it maybe at 60. And then I'm gonna run it through normal warp with another Parallel Noise. I'm just gonna copy and paste this one so we can get similar scale, although I'm just gonna increase the scale just a little bit. So we get like a nice warp. And let's compare. I think the value of 1 might be a little bit too much, so I'm just gonna keep it maybe to 0.7. I'm gonna use another Blur Q Grayscale. However, I just need a little bit intensity rather than full default value. So I'm gonna go maybe with 1. Okay, now I wanna actually erase some of the parts of that trail. So I'm gonna bring the blend node. I'm gonna plug this, the background. And for the foreground, I'm just gonna bring shape. I'm gonna go for the soft circle shape, and I'm gonna use tiling. Next, I'm gonna run it through splatter. I keep the default values for now. However, I'm just gonna use zoom, disorder as well. Disorder angle maybe, size variation, pattern width. Let's go for the maximum values now, and for the zoom, let's try the maximum, which is 10,000. And let's tweak the gain a little bit, maybe 0.7. And now let's plug this in here First, let's run it through histogram scan so we can have a slightly better control. Now we can, for example, erase some of those. And if we plug it back into the blend node and set this to, for example, subtract, we can get rid of some of the areas there, okay? I'm gonna go back to the histogram scan now, because I just wanna just a little bit of the erosion. Now I'm gonna go back to splatter and maybe pick a little bit better disorder variation. Mostly I want to get rid of some of the shapes from the edges. That's why I'm trying to find a better look for those. I'm gonna go to histogram scan now and maybe get rid of some of the contrast. So I think I'm getting like a really nice gradient between here, between the edges of that trail, so I'm just gonna keep it as it is. The last thing, maybe let's run it through blur just to see if we can get some better looking results. So if I zero it, you can see we're getting like a straight lines here, so I just want to get rid of those, and I could do it by increasing the intensity of that blur. Another thing, if you want, you can run it through warp and distort some of those shapes a little bit. So I'm gonna need Perlin noise. I'm gonna lower the scale on that Perlin noise, and we're getting slight distortion of those edges. And now you can maybe increase the intensity just to see what you might be getting. I quite like this. I'm gonna keep it as it is. And the last thing, you can run it through another warp if you want. You can even copy and paste this Perlin noise here. But maybe let's try to use directional warp instead. I'm gonna put some high intensity, maybe 50. Try with a rotation if it does anything. But I think I'm just gonna keep it maybe -10. Something like this, -20. Okay, now you can go back to the very beginning, for example, where you actually have a cross section, and play with that slider, and it's gonna give you a slightly different look. Also with the Perlin noise, the one we've created in the beginning, you can just play with the disorder, and you got like a slightly different trail texture. You can go to this multi-directional warp as well, play with the settings, just so you can get slightly better distortion on that trail. And for the export, I'm just gonna use RGB merge. I'm gonna plug this one into RGB, double click and save that node using, save that texture using that button. I'm gonna export it as a Targa file. Cool thing about the RGB, you can, for example, copy your graph, paste it, change a couple values, and you can plug different trails into a different RGB value. So you can end up having 3 different trails in one texture. I'm just gonna export this one, and I'm gonna go into the engine. And in the engine, as you can see, you can just create a nice arrow at the end, add some noise to it, and you might end up with nice looking trail. As I showed you in the beginning of the video, I kind of like to combine 2 trails, like in this example. So we're having like one that is very calm, and the other one has got some crazy curl noise added to it. So it wobbles outside of the edges of the first trail. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you learned something new in Substance. Alright, thank you so much for watching.